What happens when the hands that once inspired millions become forever linked to one of the most disturbing criminal cases in football history? On the football pitch, he was fearless. Standing between the goalposts, he commanded respect. His lightning-fast reflexes, confident presence, and match-winning saves turned him into one of Brazil's brightest stars. Fans believed they were watching the rise of a future national hero. Stadiums echoed with his name. Children dreamed of wearing his jersey. The future seemed limitless. But away from the roaring crowds and television cameras, another story was unfolding. It did not begin with a police siren. It did not begin with a courtroom. And it did not begin with a murder. It began with two lives that crossed paths, one driven by fame, power, and success, the other by hope, ambition, and the dream of building a better future. Then, without warning, one of those lives vanished. A young woman disappeared. Her family searched. Friends waited for answers. Phone calls went unanswered. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And as the mystery deepened, investigators uncovered a trail that would lead them somewhere almost unimaginable, toward one of Brazil's most celebrated footballers. The allegations that followed shocked an entire nation. How could a man admired by millions become the focus of such a horrifying investigation? Was it the corrupting influence of fame, a desperate attempt to hide a secret, or was the truth even more complicated than anyone first imagined? As detectives pieced together witness statements, phone records, forensic evidence, and courtroom testimony, a disturbing picture slowly emerged. Every new discovery raised more questions than answers, while newspapers, television stations, and football fans across Brazil watched in disbelief. This was no ordinary criminal investigation. It was a case that challenged the public's understanding of celebrity, power, justice, and accountability. A case that left a family searching for closure, divided a nation, and forever changed the legacy of a football club's captain. Some facts would be proven in court, some claims would remain fiercely disputed. But one thing was beyond question. After this case, Brazilian football would never look the same again. Tonight, we retrace every step, from the rise of a gifted goalkeeper to the investigation that captivated the world. We will separate verified facts from allegations, examine the evidence presented in court, and follow the legal journey that transformed a sporting icon into one of the most controversial figures in football history. This is not just the story of a famous athlete. It is the story of ambition, power, relationships, justice, and the devastating consequences that can follow when private lives collide with public fame. Before we begin this story, make sure you subscribe to Hidden Truth African and turn on notifications so you don't miss more untold mysteries. Long before his name became associated with one of Brazil's most controversial criminal cases, Bruno Fernandes de Souza was known for something entirely different: his extraordinary talent as a goalkeeper. Born on December 23, 1984, in Ribeirão das Neves, in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais, Bruno grew up in modest circumstances. Like many Brazilian children, football was more than a pastime. It was woven into everyday life. On streets, vacant lots, and improvised pitches, countless young players dreamed of escaping poverty through the sport. Bruno was one of them. Unlike many aspiring footballers who wanted to score goals, Bruno was drawn to the opposite end of the field. He developed as a goalkeeper, combining athleticism, confidence, and quick reflexes. Coaches noticed his physical presence and composure under pressure, qualities that would later define his style of play. His talent opened doors into professional football. As he progressed through youth systems and lower divisions, Bruno earned opportunities with established clubs. Those who followed his career believed he possessed the attributes needed to compete at the highest level of Brazilian football. His biggest breakthrough came when he joined Flamengo, one of Brazil's most historic and widely supported football clubs. Representing Flamengo carries enormous expectations. Every match is scrutinized by millions of supporters, and success can transform players into national celebrities almost overnight. Bruno embraced that pressure. Match after match, he produced important saves, and demonstrated leadership from the back. His performances earned praise from fans, teammates, and football commentators alike. Eventually, he became the team's captain, an honor reserved for players trusted to lead both on and off the pitch. By the late 2000s, Bruno's reputation had grown considerably. Flamengo won the 2009 Brazilian Serie A championship, one of the most prestigious titles in South American football. As captain and first-choice goalkeeper, Bruno was widely credited as an important part of that success. His popularity extended beyond football. Television appearances, sponsorship opportunities, and media coverage followed. Newspapers described him as one of Brazil's standout goalkeepers, and some analysts speculated that continued strong performances could eventually earn him greater opportunities at the international level. To many supporters, Bruno represented a success story. He had risen from a difficult background to the pinnacle of Brazilian club football through determination and talent. His journey embodied the dream that countless young athletes hope to achieve. Yet public success often reveals only part of a person's life. Behind the celebrations, trophies, and newspaper headlines, Bruno's personal life was becoming increasingly complicated. Relationships, legal disputes, and growing public attention began to intersect in ways that neither fans nor teammates fully understood. At the time, few could have imagined that events away from the football field would soon overshadow every achievement of his career. The qualities that had made him a household name as an athlete would be eclipsed by a criminal investigation that captured headlines across Brazil and around the world. For now, however, the future still appeared bright. Bruno stood at the peak of his sporting career, admired by millions and entrusted with leading one of the country's biggest clubs. No one watching from the stadium stands could have predicted how quickly that image would change, or that the next chapter of his life would begin not with another football match, but with a meeting that would alter the course of several lives forever. A life beyond the headlines. Before her name became known around the world through a criminal case, Eliza Samudio was a young Brazilian woman with ambitions, relationships, and dreams that extended far beyond the headlines that would later define public memory. Born in Brazil in 1985, Eliza experienced a difficult upbringing. Like many young people seeking better opportunities, she hoped to build a more stable future for herself. Friends and acquaintances described her as determined and independent, someone who believed life could improve through perseverance. By the late 2000s, Brazil's football stars were among the country's biggest celebrities. Their lives attracted intense public attention, and interactions between athletes, models, and aspiring entertainers were common in social circles. It was in this environment that Eliza and Bruno Fernandes came to know one another. At the time, Bruno was a prominent professional footballer and captain of Flamengo. Their relationship developed over a period of time, but it was also marked by instability and disagreements. What began as a private relationship would eventually become the subject of public scrutiny. The turning point came when Eliza became pregnant. She maintained that Bruno was the father of her unborn child and sought his recognition and support. Bruno publicly disputed paternity at various points during the dispute. This disagreement became the center of an increasingly bitter conflict that extended beyond their personal relationship. As the months passed, the disagreement reportedly became more serious. Legal issues concerning paternity and child support emerged, and both sides presented differing accounts of events. Because many details from this period came from witness testimony and later court proceedings, not every claim can be independently verified. What is clear from the public record is that the relationship had broken down and that the disputes surrounding the pregnancy had become increasingly contentious. Despite the conflict, Eliza continued to pursue legal avenues to establish paternity and secure support for her child. Those actions would later become an important part of the prosecution's case, which argued that the dispute over the child formed part of the motive. Bruno, through his legal defense, denied key elements of the prosecution's account during the criminal proceedings. Outside the legal conflict, Eliza remained a mother preparing for the future. Her son was born amid uncertainty, and she continued seeking recognition of his paternity through lawful means. Family members later said she wanted stability and security for her child. To the public, however, very little of this private struggle was visible. Football headlines continued to focus on Bruno's performances on the pitch, while the increasingly tense dispute remained largely out of the spotlight. No one could know that these personal conflicts were approaching a critical moment. Soon, phone calls would stop, messages would go unanswered, concern would spread among those closest to Eliza. What initially appeared to be a private dispute would soon become a missing person investigation that captured the attention of an entire nation. In early June 2010, communication with friends and relatives who expected to hear from her became increasingly concerned after repeated attempts to contact her went unanswered. According to the investigation, Eliza had traveled after being told there would be an opportunity to discuss issues surrounding their child and the ongoing paternity dispute. At first, there was no public indication that anything extraordinary had happened. Adults sometimes lose contact for a short period, and missing person cases often begin with uncertainty rather than immediate evidence of a crime. But as the days passed, concern grew. Eliza's disappearance was especially alarming because she was the mother of a young infant. Family members and those close to her insisted that disappearing without warning was completely out of character. Her absence prompted increasing pressure on authorities to determine where she had gone and whether she was safe. Investigators began assembling a timeline using witness interviews, telephone records, and other available evidence. They worked to establish who had last seen Eliza, where she had traveled, and whom she had been in contact with before she disappeared. As the inquiry progressed, detectives identified several individuals who had interacted with Eliza shortly before she vanished. Those interviews produced differing accounts, requiring investigators to compare statements against other evidence rather than accepting any single version at face value. Public attention intensified as the case became national news. Because Bruno Fernandes was one of Brazil's best-known footballers, media organizations followed every new development closely. What had begun as a missing person investigation was rapidly becoming one of the country's most closely watched criminal inquiries. At this stage, however, investigators still faced a crucial problem. They did not know exactly what had happened to Eliza, they did not know where she was, and they had not yet gathered enough evidence to explain her disappearance conclusively. That would begin to change as detectives uncovered new information, executed search warrants, and obtained testimony that reshaped the direction of the investigation. As concern over Eliza Samudio's disappearance grew, Brazilian authorities expanded what had begun as a missing person inquiry into a major criminal investigation. Detectives worked to establish a reliable timeline of Eliza's final known movements. Investigators interviewed family members, friends, and other individuals who had been in contact with her before communication ceased. Telephone records, travel information, and witness statements were examined to determine where she had been and who she had met in the days before her disappearance. As additional information emerged, investigators sought and obtained search warrants for locations they believed could be relevant to the inquiry. Evidence collected during these searches was evaluated alongside witness testimony and other investigative findings. Because some witness accounts differed, detectives compared each statement with the available physical and documentary evidence, rather than relying on any single account. The investigation also focused on the relationships between the people believed to have had contact with Eliza before she disappeared. Prosecutors would later argue that these relationships were important to understanding the sequence of events, while defense lawyers challenged aspects of that interpretation during the trial. One of the greatest challenges facing investigators was the absence of direct evidence establishing exactly what had happened to Eliza. Her body was never recovered. As a result, the investigation relied on a combination of circumstantial evidence, witness testimony, communications records, and other material gathered during the inquiry. Over time, detectives concluded that the evidence justified bringing criminal charges against Bruno Fernandes de Souza and several other individuals. Those charges reflected the investigators' conclusions based on the evidence they had assembled. The defendants, however, denied key allegations, and the case proceeded to trial, where the evidence would be tested before a jury. As the investigation became public, it received extensive media attention throughout Brazil. News organizations reported each development, and public interest grew as one of the country's best-known footballers became the subject of an increasingly significant criminal case. The intense coverage also highlighted the importance of allowing the legal process to determine the facts presented in court. The investigation had reached its next stage. The questions raised by detectives would now be answered, challenged, and examined in a courtroom, where prosecutors and defense lawyers would present their cases before a jury charged with reaching a verdict based on the evidence. This case continues to raise many questions. What is your opinion so far? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more investigations like this. By the time the case reached court, investigators believed they had assembled enough evidence to argue that Eliza Samudio's disappearance was not an isolated event, but the result of a coordinated criminal act. The prosecution presented its case by bringing together witness testimony, telephone records, investigative findings, and other evidence collected during the investigation. Prosecutors argued that the dispute over paternity and child support provided a motive, and that several individuals played different roles in the events surrounding Eliza's disappearance. During the trial, prosecutors relied heavily on testimony from witnesses who described what they said had happened before and after Eliza was last seen. Some of those accounts were challenged by the defense, and the court carefully considered their credibility alongside the other evidence presented. One of the unusual aspects of the case was that Eliza's body was never recovered. Even so, Brazilian law does not always require the recovery of a body for a homicide conviction. Instead, the court considered whether the totality of the evidence proved beyond a reasonable doubt that a homicide had occurred. The defense disputed significant parts of the prosecution's case. Bruno denied responsibility for Eliza's death, and his lawyers questioned aspects of the investigation and the reliability of certain witness statements. Throughout the proceedings, the defense argued that the evidence did not support the prosecution's conclusions. After hearing testimony, reviewing the evidence, and listening to arguments from both sides, the jury reached its decision. Bruno Fernandes de Souza was convicted of crimes related to Eliza Samudio's death. The verdict marked the end of one of Brazil's most closely followed criminal trials and transformed a celebrated football career into a lasting legal legacy. The case also sparked national debate. Some viewed the verdict as an important step toward justice, while others continued to discuss the investigation, the evidence, and the broader issues of violence against women and accountability for public figures. For Eliza's family, however, one painful reality remained unchanged. Although the court reached its legal conclusions, her body was never found, leaving questions that could never be answered completely. As the courtroom proceedings came to an end, attention turned to the sentence, the appeals that followed, and the public reaction to the possibility that one of Brazil's most famous footballers might one day seek a return to professional football. Following his conviction, Bruno remained in prison while pursuing appeals through Brazil's legal system, as permitted under the country's judicial process. In 2017, Brazil's Supreme Federal Court granted him temporary release, while certain appeals were still pending. The decision generated immediate public debate. Some viewed the ruling as a normal application of legal procedure, while others believed it caused additional pain for Eliza Samudio's family and sent the wrong message about accountability. The temporary release also led to another controversy. A professional football club announced plans to sign Bruno, prompting strong public criticism. Sponsors, supporters, advocacy groups, and members of the public questioned whether someone convicted in such a high-profile case should be allowed to resume a professional sporting career. Facing widespread backlash, several planned football opportunities ended quickly. Although Bruno later played for smaller clubs, he never returned to the level of success or public admiration he had enjoyed during his years at Flamengo. Meanwhile, Eliza's son continued to be raised by members of her family. Public discussion increasingly shifted away from Bruno's football career and toward the lasting impact of the case on those left behind. The debate extended beyond one individual. Across Brazil, the case became part of wider conversations about violence against women, the responsibilities of public figures, and the role of the justice system in balancing legal rights with public confidence. More than a decade after Eliza Samudio disappeared, The case continues to be remembered as one of the most significant criminal cases involving a professional footballer in Brazil. For many, it is no longer simply a story about sport. Instead, it represents a broader discussion about fame, power, responsibility, and justice. The case prompted renewed attention to violence against women and highlighted the importance of ensuring that allegations of abuse and coercion are taken seriously. It also demonstrated how intense public interest can shape the way high-profile criminal cases are reported and remembered. Bruno Fernandes de Souza's football achievements remain part of Brazil's sporting history, but they are now inseparable from the legal case that transformed his public image. His story illustrates how success on the field does not place anyone above the law, and how personal decisions can have consequences that reach far beyond the individuals directly involved. For Eliza Samudio's family, the passage of time has not erased the loss. Although the legal process reached its conclusion, her absence continues to be deeply felt by those who knew and loved her. This documentary is not intended to sensationalize tragedy or to define a person's life solely by the circumstances of their death. Instead, it seeks to examine how a celebrated public figure became involved in one of Brazil's most consequential criminal cases, while remembering that behind every headline are real people whose lives were permanently changed. As viewers reflect on this story, difficult questions remain. How should society balance justice, rehabilitation, and public accountability? What responsibilities come with fame and influence? And how can tragedies like this encourage stronger protections for those who may be vulnerable? If this documentary has helped you better understand one of football's most shocking criminal cases through verified facts and careful reporting, consider subscribing to Hidden Truth African for more deeply researched true crime documentaries from around the world. Thank you for watching, and remember, every mystery has a story. Every story deserves the truth. Hidden Truth African.